Well, I am very happy to introduce today's guest. Pauline Brown, as I said, is former chairman of North America for the luxury goods company LVMH. She also previously held senior level executive positions at leading cosmetics companies, including Avon Products and Estee Lauder. She's a Wharton MBA, a former Bain consultant, and a former managing director of the private equity firm, the Carlyle Group. Pauline is the author of the amazing new book, Aesthetic Intelligence, which was published by HarperCollins in, I think, late 2019. She currently is an executive in residence at Columbia Business School. With that brief introduction, welcome, Pauline, to the ExecuNet stage. They are all yours.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. That's a very generous introduction. I'm thrilled to be here. Thrilled to know that some aspects of our life can go forward, notwithstanding what's happening now to most aspects of our life. This is a distressing time, and it's causing many of us to take a huge time out, and for good reason. But at the same time, I reflect upon what I wrote and published late last year and its relevance in this world we're entering into, this post-pandemic world, which feels to me very different than the world that originally spurred my interest in the book. And at the same time, I am convinced that this concept of aesthetic intelligence and the power and value and sustainability of aesthetic propositions in the business context is more relevant now and in the next several years than it has been ever before. So let me just take the next 40 minutes or so to give you an overview of what is this concept of aesthetic value that I'm talking about. How does it apply to business? How do individuals, whatever business they're in, actually cultivate that capability in themselves and apply it to companies that they work for? And of course, I'm going to conclude from there about what this might mean going forward. You know, my crystal ball is only as good as everyone else's, but I have some premonitions that I certainly want to share. I'm going to start by defining for you aesthetic intelligence, because you probably have a sense based on the definition of each of those two words, aesthetics and intelligence, but you're not quite sure. And before I even talk about this other AI, which is the other term that I often use for it, I'm actually going to define for you aesthetics. Oftentimes when people hear the word aesthetics, they think it means beauty. Now, something that is aesthetic is oftentimes beautiful, but that isn't necessarily a synonym for aesthetics. The word aesthetics comes from the Greek word aesthetikos, which actually has to do with the senses, and it has to do with perception of the senses through various stimuli. And so, for example, if you think of the word of an anesthesiologist, it's a related word. The job of an anesthesiologist is to numb the senses. So aesthetic experiences are ones that arouse the senses, obviously in a pleasurable way, and it's all the senses. So a beautiful concert, a beautiful meal, an exciting and memorable vacation, these are all highly aesthetic. And so I do want to get away from the thinking that this is just about beauty in the sort of traditional art sense of the word. The other point I want to make before I get into aesthetic intelligence is I was very mindful when I was writing the book, and prior to writing, I actually taught at the Harvard Business School, and I'm now reintroducing that course called The Business of Aesthetics at Columbia Business School. I was very mindful that I didn't want this to be about design thinking. Design thinking is a discipline that has gained a lot of traction in the last many years. I have great respect for preeminent practitioners of design thinking, but design thinking is really about solving problems. It's about using the powers of design to elegantly solve for problems. Aesthetic solutions or aesthetic strategies, as I refer to them, is about lifting the spirit